In today's video, I want to share with you some lessons I learned from buying pre-foreclosures subject to the existing mortgages. But before I do, please make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page. We would appreciate it. If you've already subscribed to my YouTube page, thank you so very kindly. My team and I, we do everything possible to share valuable information with you, especially if you're looking to take your personal, your professional, your financial life to the next level. So thank you so very much. Also, make sure that your notifications are on so that as we drop new content, guess what? You'll be the first notified. So let's get back to some lessons I learned from buying pre-foreclosures subject to the existing mortgages. Now, listen, I only put 5 on here. I've learned way more than 5. But I'm just doing this video and I'm thinking about some of the top lessons that I've learned, because everybody who's into real estate investing, number one, they're not creative real estate investors. Most real estate investors are conventional real estate investors. And for a lot of the creative real estate investors, there's still a niche of investors like myself who actually acquire real estate using the subject to strategy. Now, I have 2 different niches that I'm highlighting here. The first niche is pre-foreclosures. That's a certain type of property that you can target. Everybody don't target pre-foreclosure. Some people buy at auctions. Some people buy REOs. Those are properties that have already been auctioned. And some people don't even want to touch those properties. Some real estate investors, they'll rather just deal with an agent or some off-market deals that are not tied to a pre-foreclosure. So the pre-foreclosure is a niche, all right? But then the subject to, which is an acquisition strategy, is a niche. So when I say these are lessons I learned from buying pre-foreclosure subject to, that means I have bought properties that were in pre-foreclosure, and upon buying the property, we, of course, stopped the foreclosure, but the way we bought the property outside of the cash that we put up to reinstate the loan and to give the seller whatever we had to take care of, we took over whatever the existing mortgage is. So hopefully you understand that. Again, let me explain it a different way. The home that is in pre-foreclosure, it is preparing for an auction, okay? The owner of the home got a loan, got a mortgage at some point. They stopped paying that mortgage, or maybe they had an HOA that foreclosed on them. It could be different foreclosures, but in this case, let's just say the bank started the foreclosure process and they had an auction date set. Well, we come in, we buy the home, but instead of us going to another bank getting a new loan, we're just taking over the existing mortgage. Now, because these are 2 different niches, pre-foreclosures and subject to, there are so many moving parts. One of the reasons why I like to talk about these type of in-depth creative activities in real estate investing, because when I first got started in real estate, I wish I had people talking about the nuances, the details. As a matter of fact, when I first learned about strategies like subject to or wraps, even lease options in the early 2000s, I didn't have clarity on them. I was very confused from what I was hearing, and it caused me to just not do anything. Where in today's world, we have the internet, we have social media, we have coaching, we have online courses. It's so accessible, but even now, it's still a challenge to get this information and to actually apply it and execute it because of the different moving parts. So here are just a few of the lessons that I've learned. Number 1, the first lesson, people change when pressure is gone. People change when pressure is gone. What do I mean by that? Well, here's what I mean by that. People who are in pre-foreclosure, they're under pressure, especially when you're in pre-foreclosure in a state like Georgia, because every first Tuesday of the month, there's an auction. So we could talk to someone today, all right? As of the time of this video, today is what? Today is September the 20th. Okay, so in a week or so, Tuesday, October the 1st, we're going to have another auction here in Metro Atlanta. all the courthouses in the state of Georgia will have some form of an auction, okay? That means homes that are in pre-foreclosure, if the homeowners don't do something, if they don't get a loan mod, if they don't file bankruptcy, if they don't get a partial claim, if they don't reinstate the loan, if nothing or if they don't sell it, if nothing happens, they will lose their homes to auction, okay? So that means they're in pre-foreclosure. But what it also means is they are under pressure. That's why when I say people change when pressure is gone, because when you come in as the savior of the situation and you buy this home subject to, you have to be very careful how you handle the individual or the individuals who are in pre-foreclosure. Let me give you an example. One of the policies that we have in our company is the home that we buy that's in pre-foreclosure, even though we're buying it subject to the existing loan, we will not buy the home. This is a policy. We will not buy the home if the home is still being occupied by the homeowner. We're not buying it. Why? Because people change when pressure is gone. And I'm just not going to be putting up $20, $30, sometimes $40, $50,000 at closing. And I can't even go to the house when I leave the lawyer's office because the homeowner is still there. Now, there are some companies that work out certain leaseback deals. That's not our policy because I know people change when pressure is gone. As a matter of fact, because I have bought pre-foreclosure subject to, and I have ensured that the property was vacant by the time I got to the closing with the seller and we signed the documentation, especially if the seller was walking away with cash. I made sure that property was vacant. I made sure that my contractor was headed to that home once we closed so that locks could be changed, and we have the garage door fobs, and we control that property at the day of closing. But I've had homeowners who sold me their properties come back a day or two or maybe a week or so later and start questioning me about the whole deal itself. Basically, it's kind of like seller's remorse, right? Because people change when pressure's gone. So all I'm telling you is, if you're looking at getting into niches like pre-foreclosure and using strategies like subject to, you need to have not just core values, but you need to have certain policies that you do not violate, because it can cost you not just money, but it can cost you a lot of stress and a lot of time. Lesson number 2, underwrite all scenarios, the worst case scenarios and the best case scenarios. One of the mistakes I see a lot of investors make, newbies and seasoned investors, I've seen both, whether you're a creative investor or a conventional investor, investors always underwrite the best case scenario. Oh, the ARV is this, and if we do this, this, and this, and we put this type of work in it, and we rent it for that, we'll cash flow this dollar amount. Don't underwrite the best case scenario, underwrite the worst case. And you need to be very pessimistic, very critical in your underwriting all scenarios. Why? Because you're buying a distressed property from a distressed seller, and you're taking over an existing mortgage. So one of your worst case scenario underwriting activities should be, what happens if the bottom falls out? What happens if the bank that this mortgage is with calls the due on sale? What happens if the seller calls the bank after you buy it because they have seller's remorse and say, they took my home, I don't own it anymore, but they still have it in my name, I don't want it in my name. What happens in that situation? Even though you can have some recourse strategies put in place, but you need to underwrite those. So let me give you an example of how I underwrite all scenarios, best case and worst case. Of course, the best case is, okay, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna fix it, I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna fix it, I'm gonna rent it, or do a lease option. But what is the worst case? Well, I buy it, the bottom falls out, I have to call my conventional lender and see if I can get a DSCR loan. Now I need to ask my conventional lender, how long is the seasoning period? Because sometimes when you buy a home, they want you to, some lenders want you to own the home for at least 90 days or 6 months or a year. That's called the seasoning period. I also want to look at hard money lenders. What is my loan to value need to be in order for a hard money lender to come in? So for example, if I take over existing mortgage and let's say the existing mortgage is 300 and I buy it and there's no equity, well, I don't have any wiggle room for a lender to come in and give me a loan if they want some type of equity wiggle room or loan to value. These are things that you just need to talk about and think about. Okay. Lesson number 3, doing good versus doing deals. Most people like me who buy pre-foreclosures using strategies like subject to, most of us really love to do good. That's one of the perks. That's one of the incentives. We get like moral paychecks, from helping people. I'm a preacherpreneur. So my wife and I, we pastor a church. We've been in ministry for over 2 decades. So we love God. We love God's people. We pastor people and we have a ministry community. So doing good is a part of our DNA. All right. But we still need to know the difference between doing good versus doing deals. Because I'm going to tell you, sometimes my do good radar tries to get in the way of my doing deal radar. Meaning that, you hear sob stories, and it could be real stories that people are going through that are on the verge of losing their home. But there's no equity, there's no wiggle room, you can't sell it, you can't lease it, and you're going to find yourself in a situation like, for example, we had one young lady, her home was underwater. She owed more on the mortgage than what the house could sell for, so she couldn't sell it. We wouldn't be able to sell it. And her mortgage payment, the PITI, her total payment was like $3,000, maybe $3,200 a month. That home in that specific area, it was a new build, so she bought it from a builder. And the home may have rented for $2,500. So the home wouldn't even rent for as much as the mortgage was. So that means if we would have bought that house from her, number one, we wouldn't have been able to sell it. Now I'm stressed out if I bought it because I can't sell it. So God knows if anything worst case happens, I'm messed up. She was behind probably about 7 or 8 months. We're talking about $3,000 a month times 7 or 8, easily $25,000 to close the deal because you still got to pay people. You got to get insurance. You got to pay closing costs. You got to help them relocate if they need help. Even if they didn't get anything, it's still 25 grand. Now I got 25 grand tied up in a house that I can't sell. Plus I can't rent it conventionally or traditional rental because it can only rent for maybe 25, 26 and the note is 32. So I'm still losing $500 or $600 a month unless I get creative and do a short term or a midterm. That area didn't fit the criteria. So my point is I need to differentiate doing good versus doing deals. Now, fortunately, we showed her how to reach out to the bank, push loss mitigation, get HUD on the phone, talk to counselors, and she was able to work it out. Thankfully, fortunately, because we wasn't going to buy it, because I wasn't going to let doing good get in the way of doing deals. So this is a lesson you got to learn. 4th lesson, expect versus inspect. I have 2 ministers and preachers that are 2 of my favorites. And both of them always say this when it comes to people they work with in ministry. They say, people don't do what you expect. They always say, people do what you inspect. So you want to know the difference between having expectations when you're doing these types of deals, but inspecting the things that you have people doing because you have these expectations that they're going to do it right. So who am I talking about? I'm talking about your acquisition people. If you have a TC, a transaction coordinator, I'm talking about attorneys, the people who work for them, whoever you got working on your deal, you need to inspect, okay? People don't do what you expect, they do what you inspect. I have found a lot of things that went missing because there's a lot of moving parts when you're dealing with pre-foreclosures. You got to get reinstatement letters. You got to get payoff letters. You got to communicate to the trustee. Sometimes the trustee doesn't give you the information, you got to reach out to the bank. You need third-party authorization. You got to do title searches. The attorney's office got to get that information to you just in case something shows up that you didn't know. You don't want to see it on the HUD at closing and you wasn't prepared for it. You have documents that need and disclosures that need to be signed. You have situations that the seller is going through because they're distressed. They may need movers. They may need relocation services. They may be homeless. We don't know what the situation is. All I know is when you have people working with you on these types of deals, they don't do what you expect. They do what you inspect. Point blank, period. And last but not least, the final lesson that I want to share in this video is verify and evaluate. Verify. You want to verify all liens and all loans during your due diligence period, okay? Once you get a contract signed and you're preparing for closing, you have legal due diligence, financial due diligence, physical due diligence. Do all your due diligence. Don't skip that part. It will come back to bite you. Verify the liens, verify the loans. Don't just go off some old, mortgage statement that you get when you visit the property. Sometimes you can't get access to the online portal because they freeze it when when the individual has been in foreclosure. But get that reinstatement letter, get that payoff letter, both of them from the trustee or the bank so that you know exactly what type of loan they have, what the interest rate is, if it's adjustable, if there are penalties, if there are partial claims that show up on liens that don't show up on the mortgage statement. I'm telling you, you got to verify this stuff and then evaluate. Evaluate your risk tolerance. What are you willing to tolerate? Some people don't want to go to bed every night and wake up every day dealing with somebody else's mortgage, dealing with the issues people who are in pre-foreclosure have, and they are many. So you have to evaluate your risk tolerance and evaluate the reward. Make sure that it's worth you doing whatever it is that you're doing. So these are just 5 of the lessons I've learned buying pre-foreclosures subject to the existing mortgage. If you want more information like this, of course, we're going to continue to share videos. We have many videos about creative real estate on our YouTube channel. We have hundreds of video training modules in our course called the Millionaire Blueprint, which shows you how to engineer a $1 million enterprise, not just with your real estate investing, but with your starting and structuring your holding companies, your creative tax strategies, your financial systems, your executive systems. We teach you all the ins and outs. We don't just want you to invest in real estate. We want you to build wealth. So if you need more information, leave a comment, let us know, click one of the links in the description, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.